Okay, Battleground state polls. We've got a week, less than a week, till the election. Let's start with Michigan. The latest Reuters Ipsos poll puts Joe Biden ahead by 9, 52 to 43%. In Nevada, the latest New York Times Siena College poll shows Biden leading by 6, 49 to 43. In Iowa, the latest Iowa Nexstar Raba Research poll shows Biden leading by 4 points, 50 to 46%, with a margin of error of plus or minus 4 points. And in North Carolina, the Reuters Ipsos poll shows Biden ahead by 1, 49 to 48%, with a margin of error of 4.4 points.
So, Willie, let me just say and start
Wow.
off by saying I trust absolutely no polls. I think it's a hangover from 2016, but I trust no polls. If Donald Trump's within 3 points of Joe Biden in any poll, I immediately color that state red, for no good reason at all. But I hear what people in the media are saying about this race, and it sounds remarkably similar to what they were saying about the Clinton race 4 years ago. And yes, Joe Biden's over 50% in a lot of these polls. And yes, Joe Biden's popularity is higher than ever. But we live in a tumultuous world, a changing world. You know, polls started by people picking up the phone, calling, getting responses. We've become a far more cynical, skeptical society, even over the past 4 years. How many people are telling the truth? How many Trump people are even picking up the phones? Again, I know they're doing the best they can do, but for some reason, I just am very skeptical when I start hearing people talking about how Joe Biden's moving towards a comfortable win.
Well, you're not alone. You're joined by just about every Democrat I know who's saying, I don't believe these polls for a second. Everybody's got to go out and vote. It's part of the reason you're seeing these massive lines for early voting. People getting out, they don't trust the mail, they don't trust the polls. They want to get their vote banked right now. And as you said, North Carolina, the state of Florida is of big concern. That's tight. Who knows which way that's going to go. And Joe Biden yesterday spent his time in Georgia, which shows you how that campaign is thinking, that they even can expand the map. Even that yesterday had Democrats concerned. Why are you in Georgia? We got to lock down Wisconsin and Michigan. And what about Pennsylvania? So, Claire McCaskill, you're always a good barometer for us on this, having lived through a lot of elections and watched the way the electorate turns out or doesn't turn out. So where are you right now as you look at the polls? Joe Biden definitely has a wider polling lead than Hillary Clinton had at this time 4 years ago, but yet some skepticism from Democrats.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 things that are different that make me feel a little better. I am like every other Democrat. I will not believe it until I see it. However, the coalition that Trump had, which was, he was competitive with college-educated women 4 years ago. He won seniors, and he won independents. Well, he is not winning in any of those categories now, and he is losing college-educated women by like 25 points. So I look at that. I also look at his favorability. He's much more liked than Hillary Clinton was at this point. And then the other thing I'm looking at in the data is forget about the polls. Look and see who's voting. In Georgia, 1 out of 4 voters in Georgia that have already voted are first-time voters or not reliable voters. These are typically not the people who show up early. The people who show up early are typically the ones who vote every single time. So the fact that we're getting this kind of early turnout from infrequent voters and new voters gives me hope.
Well, the crucial state of Florida has surpassed its 2016 early vote totals. Floridians have cast 6.8 million ballots already, with almost 4 million cast by mail. The statewide turnout thus far is 46%, according to the U.S. Elections Project. With 42% of voters being Democrats, 37% Republicans, and 20% independents. But in Miami-Dade County, which did not mail absentee ballots out until the last possible day, turnout was less than 46% and lagging for Democrats. And as of Tuesday evening, the state reports that in Miami-Dade, 52% of Republicans, 47% of Democrats, and 37% of independents have either voted early in person or cast a mail-in vote. Democrats maintain about an 80,000 vote advantage so far in Miami-Dade County, a county where Democrats need a strong showing for a chance to win that state. Is that?
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.